Hello, welcome again. My name is Frederic Zamvola, and I'm here to cover recent developments in the crypto space. And today I'll attempt to play the devil's advocate and explain as to when you may not actually need blockchain applications, crypto in this case, especially in the case of nation states. And usually, when I talk about the blockchain, I explained that the case of them are basically based on the lack of trust and the lack of efficient institutions, corruption, and basically issues that usually happen in developing nations instead, not so much developed nations. But with the recent development in the US, it seems to be that developed nations as well would like to basically use blockchain as a solution to problems. I will kind of talk about which kind of problems you may have face and when you actually do not need blockchain applications. And recently, with the change of market outcome, maybe this video is a bit late, but even yesterday I would have said the same thing. That's what I was planning to say. Is to basically, this is a case where maybe the idea is not well understood and potentially the benefits are not clear to the general populace. So when is the crypto blockchain application not adequate? I'll think of five cases. For example, when you have trusted central authorities, you may not need blockchain. When you have efficient financial systems as well, you have a very robust legal framework. Regulatory compliance is respected, socially understood, socially expected, and in general, the whole legal and the financial systems are stable, as well as a strong capital market or asset exchange, such as stock exchanges. So when you have central authorities that are trusted, you, for example, have an independent central bank. The central bank would basically manage the economic activity, kind of play a role into how much the economy is going in terms of monetary policy. They will basically come in and try to put in more liquidity if it's needed for increased economic activity, less liquidity, for example, if there is too much activity of hitting of the economy. So the central bank, once they're independent, they also have a play to basically stabilize economic activity within a certain bandwidth. So when it's transparently done and the rule of law is known and expected, then there is no need for decentralized mechanism. You know, these are the same institutions that are very much independent and the policies will be explained and the expected outcome will be reached because everybody knows what is the expected outcome and actors will behave accordingly. So basically you kind of know what you are going to do, and people, because they know what you are going to do, they behave in a way which actually matches what you're expected to see. Think of it as expectations being basically matched, which is hard to do but easy to do when you are publicly trusted. What will happen if it's missing, which is now the case of crypto, the antithesis in this case? Well, those countries, the national reserves are quite at the mercy of the elite. They can basically manipulate national reserves to fund private enterprises, private companies. They may lend with beneficiary with no interest actually to an elite member. And some private companies who are linked to politicians may not be taxed, may not be subjected to duties, import duties. So there's a lot that is basically played. And also there's a lot of insider trading in case it happens. Why Bitcoin? When was it created? It was created, of course, because there was this perception after the 2008 crisis of a lack of trust between the political and financial institution partnership and the citizens. Basically, there was a feeling that the economic financial institutions have become too much in control of the political decisions, hence the bailouts. And basically, Bitcoin came to answer the question as to when do you have to suffer the cost of financial mismanagement, because at the end of the day, when taxpayers' money is used to bail out a large company, it's everybody who actually pays for it. So that's why Bitcoin was in 2008. So is it still the case today? Apparently it is. We will see. So another case when you do not need the blockchain is when you have very efficient financial systems. Most of them are quite cheap. For example, in Canada, we have national exchange, national transfers of zero. It's basically cheap up to a certain amount, which is that the level of an individual will be enough, thousands of dollars per day, free of charge. It's not little, maybe not for a business, but for a person, it's quite cheap. And also, when it's missing, of course, you have very expensive cross-border cost, hence the development of Equival, which we're developing within the GoMastech pool. So the solutions are mostly applicable for cross-border transfers, and in developing nations, even intra-border transfers are expensive. In some cases, banks will even charge you for deposit. So withdraw, yeah, that's a given. They charge you for the account management. They charge you for the payroll transmission. They charge you even for deposit in some banks. So you can see why it's expensive. When you have a robust legal framework, you may not need blockchain because at the end of the day, the blockchain is to enforce outcomes through smart contracts. And if you have a legal framework which is basically hard to bypass, then the blockchain as well will not be more efficient. So basically, you will have a society which is knowledgeable, which knows that this is how I'm expected to behave, this is the law, I have to follow the law, I have to follow the rule. Once such knowledge is spread and the expectations again are similar, blockchain applications are necessary because they are complex to basically translate into code. Those interactions, humans are kind of easy at gathering information, interpreting information, summarizing information, which means your decision may actually be based on a lot of information. So that information to code it is close to hard, not impossible. Just hard, and with time, maybe with machine learning, it's going to be easier. As you say, as a case of a point, for example, Equival with the dispute smart contracts. The dispute smart contracts themselves are around maybe 5 or 6 smart contracts just for the dispute, and for the whole transaction within Equival, tens of smart contracts, and that is just for money exchange. So you can see now if you have to go into law, if you have to go into transfer of assets of your family members, friends, wives, children, it becomes quite a long, complex system. So, and also on the blockchain, there is quite a lot of need for guarantees. Collateral amounts are quite larger than in real life because of course, it's a computer which will determine whether it's enough, and usually it's better to be safe than sorry. So it's going to ask for more, so which means it's quite inefficient, and a lot of resources are kind of held and make not made for good use. Of course, they can still be used as collateral, which is what they are, but still it's money standing in a pool. When it's missing, of course, you have in developing nations, for example, property rights which are not respected. People can sell you the same plot while they've sold it to somebody else, and then some random public servant will come in and decide who actually owns the plot, with a little motivation, of course. But ultimately, the paper you received is meaningless because even though it's official, it's not official if the public servant did not say that it is. So it's quite a manipulative environment. Another point as to when you do not need the blockchain is when you have regulatory compliance and stability. So regulatory compliance means the rules and the legal requirements are respected, and in this case there is not a lot of fraud, not a lot of money laundering, and financial instability is basically not non-existent. In some cases it's not there, and then you do not need decentralized applications, that because there is of course a cost to them. And in the case of fraud, most of the time is because of loopholes that are clearly known. Politicians and the dominant economic agents know those loopholes, and because of the economic agents have almost indirect control on the politicians, those loopholes are kind of not cleared because it's kind of understood that it's not worth it. and basically they are ignored. They're ignored because the assumption is that the dominant economic actor will always have the benefit of the nation at heart, which is usually not the case. But when it's missing, then yeah, well, you are done. You are killed. As we see in those nations that are basically exporting minerals, like in the DRC, because they are even the corrupted elite are the ones actually participating in fraud and money laundering. And they are basically not fraud in that case. They're just, what can I say, power plays. So they can go and withdraw funds from the national accounts. They can basically export minerals without them being at the account of the nation, and quite a lot. And in some cases, they even monopolize the economic activity, the army, the main party, a monarch in some cases. Yeah, so it's quite hard to be an independent actor in those environments. You cannot be smart enough to be wealthy or no. It's basically a closed system. You cannot outrun it. You cannot basically act independently in those systems. Either you are at a lower level or you're out. You cannot be, you cannot grow. In another case with the blockchain, maybe something which I tried to add maybe as the last point is the whole concept of what actually is the blockchain. What are those tokens? Those tokens are not similar to stocks. Stocks basically they have a way to be calculated. They will basically assess the well, there's a market capitalization. For example, in some cases, I hear people say, okay, this token has grown in value. That value is not actually, it is market cap. So it means it's like what is the price each unit will be worth at that point of sale. Think of it like some marginal values, marginal cost. For example, if you are looking into how much it takes to produce a good and how much it takes to be sold. That's why the technological companies are quite valuable because their marginal cost is low, whereas the price they sell it is high. So the when the marginal cost continues to be low and it's almost zero at one point, then you have a high market cap. So is it the case with the blockchain tokens? No, it's not the case because they're already at zero. So which means smart individuals, smart companies will not be buying for the sake of just following the trend of growth. They know there could be growth because of speculation, but that speculation is known as to why it's happening. It's not just because they expect increased valuation. They do not. So recently, some token went up in value or whatever it is they went up into. That's non-existent for a smart individual, for a smart company. They are not going to invest because there's no investment to be made. It's just something happening because people don't know. They kind of expect things that won't happen. So stock exchange require trust, and even though the blockchain comes to solve the issue of trust as well, but not actually in the trust where capital markets are involved. There is information. There's no need of trust in that system. So when tokens are put into exchanges and then they're exchanged, only speculation makes them add value, but it's not actually the interesting trust carrying ability. No. So they are privately issued and they do not have any guarantee. I don't even know what kind of reserve a nation state will do with blockchain tokens. I don't know. It's the antithesis of a nation state, and that's what I always say. It's the problem. The benefit of blockchain activities is to escape corrupt nation states. If a state is democratic, it is free, transparent. Well, blockchain maybe in space it can apply, but in those borders, no, it's not. There's no benefit to it. So technologically, also blockchain can actually over outgrow nation capacities, which means a nation which introduces blockchain applications can find itself taken over by something else because, of course, actors could be beyond those borders and have access to that technology and those assets. If you call them assets, I'll call them codes. So they can actually naturally overpower you if you're not careful. So They can exceed your limits and your law will not do anything against an outcome. If people invest in an instrument and that instrument ends up being overtaken by a foreign actor, well, you can potentially give them some compensation, but is it fair for those who did not invest? Maybe not. So yeah, so there's a lot to think about. That's the video for today. So yeah, so hopefully you did not lose money trying to chase what could be ultimately some kind of manipulation. And again, there's no money about to be made. The technology is not about the money. There's even nothing about that exchange. There's no benefit to gain in blockchain activity other than the contracts, the technological ability to program them, and the social participation, basically the freedom of action, not the freedom of gains. There's nothing free in gaining. So enjoy your day. And again, it's the Goma Tech Pool and the team in Goma. Slowly they're coming back online, so you'll be hearing from them very soon. Everybody is fine. So far, we have good news from Akile as well. He's back online. And on Ekival as well, we are back online. A few were sick and some had some injuries, but they will be back shortly and we'll be putting an update in the coming days. Thank you and enjoy your day.